of where we've been staying. You can see the Washington Monument, the Capitol building. It does have the freeway. I've actually been sleeping pretty good here, but the end is nigh. Are we going into World War III? Is this war going to end? There's reports in the New York Times that that Iran's reaching out to make a secret deal that, and then the market pumped up, and then uh, hopefully there's a quick resolution. Not too many regular people get injured. Just interesting to be here in the power center, one of the power centers. This is like the governmental power center. New York City is like the financial power center of the United States. All these young people living in this area where I'm at, going to work in suits and ties or nice dress pants. Like a newer area where they built up a lot of apartment buildings. Seems like mostly young people. And then you can see a ton of them walking on that road there that goes underneath the freeway, and they're walking into work. They probably there's some buildings there that you can see that are like House of Representative buildings. So a lot of those people are going over there. Other government buildings, but they're probably aides to senators and congressmen and women. Now you have about an 85% chance that the Democrats are going to win back the House of Representatives, which will probably delay lots of, uh, any kind of laws. It feels like if like the Clarity Act doesn't pass before the midterms start getting closer, that with the Democrats in control of the House, then man, that might not pass at all. And that's why they're trying to punch it through. They'll also impeach Trump every week or something like that. Meanwhile, we're waiting for this. Whether this war drags on, it feels like some point, no matter what, like I talked about the other day, they're going to have to print a bunch of money. Whatever they're doing, they're spending money. If they want to replenish whatever military capabilities that they're using, missiles or whatever, bombs, they're going to have to, you know, rebuild those, build more of those. You can see it here, there's a lot of big decision makers in this area. The Pentagon's just, I think, across the Potomac River, somewhere about right there. And then you have all the defense contractors, all those companies that are near the Pentagon. You have you have people working at the Pentagon, and then they move over to the private sector. They go back and forth. Same thing with like FDA. They go back and forth from government jobs to corporate sector, and then they have all those inside ties pushing their own narratives. So it's it's just interesting. It's interesting to come here right when I guess technically it was Fridays after hours is when the war broke out, and then Saturday is when they, I think, killed the supreme leader of Iran. So it's just an interesting time to come. And then, on the weekend, Sunday, there's not really, it's pretty kind of quiet. There's some tourists. And then Monday, Tuesday, now there's everyone going to work. You can see that the freeway there, there's kind of the rush hour traffic. Meanwhile, we have the projects that we're invested in. And right now the market's down. And, Bitcoin, I did see got back up to 71,000, but when you're in for the long haul, it shoots up to 71,000. It could be 59,000 and, tonight, tomorrow, and then back up. And I won't really start getting excited until Bitcoin's back up over 100,000. It looks like it's going to stay there and work its way. Then there's big, it goes up to 71,000, goes back down. I'll start getting excited then. And right now, we're already in March, man. So we're already in the third month of the year. The October-ish bottom scenario in the four-year cycle intact is starting to look more and more realistic, whether that gets brought forward. And Kevin Warsh, and, even though he's only the Fed chair when he comes in, if that's going to, we just don't know Trump said he didn't talk to him about lower interest rates, but he's been bashing Jerome Powell for a couple of years now, year and a half. It's kind of hard to believe they didn't talk to him about interest rates. And somewhere they're just gonna have to turn the money printer on. All those government buildings and stuff. I mean, they've been around for a while, but you know, making the government runs not very cheap. And as much as they cut some stuff, they're most of it's not being cut. So they're gonna have to turn the money printer on. It's just it's just the system needs it. I've seen that the Fed's maybe injecting more. And it feels like some of this is the petrodollar with Venezuela and Iran, and is to try to keep the feels like the last ditch efforts to keep the petrodollar alive. And there's some other geopolitical reasons why you might want to shore up some stuff, and you get better control of some certain areas. Maybe that weakens Russia or China, um, mainly China. You know, that's possible, but it also feels like on some level the this could be like we're in the last stand of the dollar being the reserve currency. How long that lasts, we don't know, but the petrodollar feels like it's coming to an end. When that happens, we don't know exactly, but it feels like they're doing the kind of everything they can to keep it alive. And when the last administration froze Russia's money, 325 billion or 50 billion, then that makes countries not want to hold dollars. It doesn't seem like they're going to want to just run into the Chinese yuan either, because you know Chinese. If you think the U.S. government can do that, well, I mean the Chinese government can do all sorts of you know they could do that kind of stuff. So I don't think people really look at that as a safe haven. And so whether the dollar, it's not going to collapse today, tomorrow, or this year, but we're seeing the slow demise of it. But you still have all these regular people that just all these people driving these cars, and you know maybe they all have what, a 70% of them have stock. I don't know, maybe more have access or stocks. But how many of them are into Bitcoin or crypto? And they're definitely probably not very many of them into altcoins. And if you did look at them, there might be a few that were into altcoins in the last, the cycle, and they bought into a little something, but they're not really into that market. So, are all these people going to start caring about decentralization? You know, we got to. I don't know. We know that phones and spending a lot of time on the phones isn't really healthy for us, but we can't stop it. So it just feels like most people are going to work, and maybe they got a little 401k getting built up. Sorry about that. They got a little 401k getting built up, and you know, they don't really care or think too deeply about how money works. Uh, how that, you know, when the dollar's getting devalued, you have to work that much harder if your wages aren't keeping up. And that's just, I don't know. That's my ramblings. It's, hopefully this gets settled. You can go and see anything you want. You can go see someone saying that all the U.S. military bases are over there. There's fake AI videos, left and right about, you know, about the war. And uh, you can see it's about ready to be over tomorrow. The market wants it to be over. And if the longer it drags on, and sometimes, things just never really work out the way you think. So we just got to buckle up for the volatility. And yeah, as the year drags on, the October bottom is looking more and more like it could be a thing. But hopefully, we hit the bottom sooner, or maybe 60,000 is the bottom. But right now, I would, too much volatility to even think about that. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.